All right. Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. My name is Karen Brownlee, and I am the Adult Program Coordinator at the North Suburban YMCA in Northbrook, Illinois. In that role, I bring a variety of programs to our community, including social networking opportunities, brain games, a caregiver support group, and the YMCA Education Series, which you are attending today. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Planning Strategies for the Caregiving Child, hosted by Matt Margolis. Matt is an estate planning and elder law attorney in Park Ridge, Illinois, and works with his partner, Lauren Weldon, to help people protect what they value most. Matt has been with the Adult Education Series since its inception and has hosted more than 40 presentations through the Y. Thank you, Matt. Matt has been practicing estate planning and elder law for 10 years. He assists his clients with their estate planning and elder law needs, including special needs, trust administration, decedents' estates, and guardianship. His firm counsels clients from birth to death and ensures that their estate planning documents reflect the different stages of their lives. Matt safeguards clients' legacies by confirming that estate planning documents are appropriately incorporated into their planning goals. Today, Matt will offer planning strategies and important matters for adult children to consider when they realize that they will need to help care for their aging parents. It isn't uncommon to see an adult child put his or her life on hold in order to take care of an ailing parent. In fact, this is happening more often. Matt's program today will focus on various planning options for the caregiver, child, and parent to consider relative to their new relationship. Today's program will last an hour, and unfortunately, I have to enforce a hard stop at 10:15 because of another program that RY has to honor at 10:15. Matt will address questions at the end of his presentation. If you have questions during the program, please type them into the chat box so that Matt can address them when he's taking questions. The YMCA Education Series is free and open to the public, but as a nonprofit organization, we are always happy to receive your donations. If you enjoy today's program and would like to support adult programming at the North Suburban YMCA, please feel free to make a donation to our Y by going to our website at www.nsymca.org. That's also where you can find the podcast after today. Again, thank you for joining us, and a special thank you to Matt for your time and effort in putting together today's program. Now I will let Matt talk to you about planning strategies for the caregiving child.
Whew, Karen, thank you. Must be out of breath. That was a lot. I want to be like, and the bathrooms are in the back, everybody, in case you need them. Well, thanks to Karen, thanks to the Y for having me. I love doing these talks. I love talking in general, much to my wife's chagrin. So you guys get me for about the next 55 minutes. So I think Karen did a really good job of introducing me. I don't think I need to go into a whole lot more there. I will echo what Karen said and just say that, any questions you have, please put them in the chat box. We can address them at the end. I used to be more willing to take questions throughout. It's a little tough in the Zoom format, especially when I can't see everybody. So, and I'm doing this on my phone. I've got my phone propped up in my office on like 5 different things that I can stack so that I can actually stand up and give a presentation and feel somewhat normal. So planning strategies for the caregiver child. We're going to talk about a couple different things today. Some that are not going to be totally relevant necessarily to a caregiver child, but I think that there's some different aspects that that are worthwhile, some different things that are worthwhile to bring up and to discuss that kind of all go around this topic of dealing with an ailing parent, right? Because that's ultimately what it is, right? When we're talking about a caregiver child, clearly that a caregiver child's taking care of somebody, right? And so that somebody is normally a parent, especially if we're calling them a caregiver child, right? I suppose it could be a caregiver grandchild, but we're really talking about children for the most part here. So I'm going to start off and I want to spend a little bit of time on powers of attorney, because I think when we're talking about this idea of kids taking care of their parents and starting to step into this role of really being more the one managing their parents' lives, clearly we're talking about a situation where the parents are failing. And when we start to see loved ones fail, and whether it's physically or cognitively, we really need to be looking at making sure that we've got our affairs in order. And so I think one of the first things that we have to consider that this child and any adult children should really start to consider for their parents. And I don't really care if this is a caregiver child or this is really just relevant to any child. We see it far too often that, adult children come to us and mom or dad has been failing for a while, and all of a sudden, they wait until mom or dad is incapacitated, right? And now they come to us and let's just say we're talking about mom, and mom has dementia, and her dementia is so bad now. She can't make her own decisions. She does not have capacity. She's requiring a lot more care. And when we wait, and I think as anybody, and I'm sure everybody on this call would agree, the longer we wait in these situations, the less options we have. And a lot of times we're acting in crisis. And these are not ideal situations to be dealing with, right? And I know it's easy for me to say this, right? And it's easy for a lot of us to agree with it until it happens to us, right? Until it's our parent, right? It's our dad, it's our mom that's starting to fail, because inevitably we have our own lives that we're managing, right? And we've got our jobs and our children. And then, we're seeing our parents fail and decline, and we're helping, but we're not really realizing that, by waiting until there's a real problem, we might really have some issues. And so one of the first things I want to discuss, really, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, and for anybody that has joined some of these talks that I give, probably so upset at the fact that I always mention powers of attorney, but I can't stress how important these documents are. And I can tell you that a lot of people don't have them, right? And so powers of attorney in Illinois, these are documents that we're using so that if I become incapacitated at some point, somebody can make decisions on my behalf. Okay, that's what a power of attorney is. I'm going to presume a lot of people are familiar with it, but I don't want to assume that. So in Illinois, we have two types of powers of attorney. We have healthcare and property. And a healthcare power of attorney is a document where I am naming people that can step in and make medical decisions for me in the event that I cannot make my own. A property power of attorney is a legal document where I'm naming people to make decisions for me with respect to everything that's not healthcare related. Who can deal with my IRA, my 401k, my checking accounts, my savings accounts, my investments, my house, who can sign a contract on my behalf, who can file my tax returns with the IRS, who can deal with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. If I don't have a power of attorney and I am incapacitated, then my loved ones, whether that's a spouse or an adult child, they are going to have to hire a lawyer and go to court and go through a guardianship to have themselves appointed as a guardian to make decisions for me. This is not an ideal scenario. Okay, going through a guardianship, we're looking at what can be a timely and costly procedure. I mean, we're looking at least a couple $1,000s of attorney's fees and court costs to go through a guardianship. And that's if it's uncontested. Uncontested meaning, I go to file for guardianship for my mom and I don't have my brother fighting me on it, right? Because he's fighting me saying, oh, then that wouldn't be a good guardian. I would be the right guardian, right? So he hires his own lawyer. Now my attorney has to fight for the ability for me to be the guardian. And so, number one, it's not ideal from the standpoint of the costs involved. Number two, majority of people, I would argue, would prefer to stay out of court and not deal with any kind of legal procedure. Number three, when we have a guardian appointed, you've got to check in with the court at least on an annual basis to show how you're spending that individual's money. Okay, because now that a court's involved, they have taken responsibility over this incapacitated individual. Okay, and so now we don't just have that initial expense. Now we've got to, have the attorney get involved annually to talk to go to the judge and just kind of bring the judge up to speed as to what's going on. Similarly, guess what? My guardian wants to sell my house or apply for Medicaid or move money around. In certain situations, I've got to work. My guardian has to work with an attorney to go to court and get approval to do those things. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but these are some of the issues that we deal with when we go through a guardianship. So it's really easy. It's really easy to avoid a guardianship. We get powers of attorney in place. Okay, I think a lot of people look at powers of attorney and they sort of brush them off, right? These are really easy documents. They're really simple. Some people fill them out online. You know, a lot of times I have clients come in and the only power of attorney they have was a healthcare power of attorney that they signed, you know, when they were going into the hospital for some kind of procedure. You know, I also want to make sure that we're not just putting powers of attorney in place off the internet or signing them in the hospital, but we're also spending time to make sure that we're putting the right documents in place, right? Are these up to date? Are these the newest forms that Illinois has to offer? Or are these really outdated and we just have no idea, right? Because we did a Google search and we found a document that we could print off the internet. Does the power of attorney have all the right protections, right? I'm not going to say you need to go to me specifically, but I do advise that people work with an attorney to put powers of attorney together. We want to make sure that, you know, some attorneys add more protective language to their documents. I know we do as an elder law, as not just an estate planning firm, but as an elder law firm as well. So we add a lot of extra language to our powers of attorney that we think that people can benefit from as they age. We also want to make sure that these documents are being signed appropriately. And I'm not that confident that people are signing them the right way and that they're being executed appropriately when they print them off the internet and they do them on their own. And I can tell you that they're not, because I've had clients come to me over the years, numerous clients, where they have a family member as the witness, right? So a healthcare power of attorney requires one witness, okay? A property power of attorney requires a witness and a notary. By the way, if you see me bend down, I've got a lower table here with my coffee and water, so I apologize. I can tell you that in some cases, the witnesses are family members, and you can't do that. Or the person that's witnessing it is the same person that's being named as the agent under the power of attorney. The agent is the person that I'm naming to make my healthcare decisions, or the person that I'm naming to make my financial or you know, property decisions under the property power of attorney. And if it's not executed appropriately, it's not a valid document. Okay. So again, these are really, really important documents. Okay, I really can't stress that enough. I won't go into a whole lot more than saying that these are documents that people should have. We need to put these in place while we still have capacity. These are not documents that we should be waiting on. Okay, let's do them now while we have capacity and we still can make our own decisions and we can decide who we want. Right now, I get to control who's going to make my healthcare decisions. I can control who's going to make my, you know, financial decisions under the property power of attorney, versus leaving a mess, right? Having my kids go through a guardianship, having a situation where they're fighting, right? Because I have kids that don't get along. Okay. So I want to mention a couple things with powers of attorney. So whether it's a healthcare power of attorney or property power of attorney, we can name one person at a time in a specific order. Okay. So we can name as many people as we want, but it's one at a time. We don't have to name the same people on our healthcare power of attorney as we do on our property power of attorney. We can name different people, right? There might be certain people that are very adept to making medical decisions and certain people that are going to be a little bit better more at the financial decisions. And again, we just want to make sure we're naming the right people, right? This shouldn't be a popularity contest, or, you know, what I see all the time is, oh, I'm gonna name my 4 kids, but I'm gonna name the, you know, oldest to youngest, because I don't want to offend my oldest child by naming the youngest one first, even though the youngest one is the most capable. And so I tell people all the time, you have to be selfish. You have to name the person that's right for the job. And I'm not saying I don't care about them hurting their kids' feelings. But it's bigger than that, right? We want to make sure that we're going to name somebody that's going to step in and make sure that things are done the right way. Okay, so we've got powers of attorney covered, right? Very important documents. And again, without these, our hands can be tied as to what we can do for our parents. So again, really, really important. Okay, now I want to start getting into some ideas behind Medicaid and some of the things that we need to think about when we got a loved one at home and they're starting to decline, and we're caring for them, and some of the things that we need to be really mindful of. So, you know, one of the things that we tell clients all the time, because a lot of times we have, you know, the adult child come to us and reach out and say, you know what, Matt, my dad's not doing so well. You know, I've been living with him for a year or 2 years, and I've been helping out. And I'm just really concerned that at some point, and whether it's 3 months or 6 months or a year, I'm not going to be able to care for him anymore in the home. And I think he'll have to go into a long-term care facility of some sort. And so here's the thing, one thing that I don't expect anybody to necessarily have on their radar or have a ton of knowledge or background in is how Medicaid works. Listen, if your mom or dad has a very large estate and you have no concerns that they won't be able to pay for their care out of pocket for the rest of their life, then most of what I'm going to talk about moving forward is not going to be relevant. Right? When we have I don't mean it like this necessarily, but when we have endless amounts of money to some extent, or an amount of money where, again, we're really not concerned that we can't pay for care for the rest of our life, those people don't typically, for the most part, those people don't go see elder law attorneys, right? Maybe to put together powers of attorney and to make sure the estate planning is up to date. But for those people that can really afford to pay for everything for the rest of their life from a care standpoint, we don't really need, those people don't come to our office, right? Those aren't the people that have questions about how am I going to care for my parent. A lot of times we're meeting with people, right? And the situation we'll talk about today is really where we know there's a limited amount of money. And we know that, and maybe it's not limited, but we know that, listen, based on, mom or dad or how they're doing, or, we know that mom and, dad's got dementia, but he's really healthy otherwise, right? Physically, he's very healthy and he's 75. He could live for another 10, 15 years with this disease. And so, yeah, maybe he's got $1 million, but we know that could go, right? And that could be gone in 7 or 8 years, spending $100,000 plus a year on this care, which is not outrageous, just so people know that. The average cost of care in a skilled nursing facility, I'd say in this general area, we're probably looking at somewhere around $8,500, $9,000 a month, I would say would be the average. Okay, right? You multiply that by 12 months, you're a little over $100,000 or right around $100,000. You're dealing with caregivers in the home and 24-hour care. You could be looking at anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 or $15,000 a month for round-the-clock care in somebody's home. So the money goes fast, right? And so one of the things that we really have to consider is this idea of Medicaid. And I think a lot of people look at Medicaid and have this idea of, Medicaid, any kind of Medicaid facility is like this state-run facility, right? I get that all the time. And listen, there's nice Medicaid facilities and there's not so nice Medicaid facilities. And, when I use the term nice in relation to any nursing home, to be frank, I think we all have to take that with a grain of salt. And to me, nice, when I'm talking about a nice care facility, I'm really talking about what place provides the best care. For my loved ones, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying I want it to look like a dump, to be frank. I want it to look nice, but I don't need to look like the nicest place in the world. I want to make sure that the care is top notch. And if the care is top notch and, there aren't marble countertops and mahogany armoires in the lobby, that's okay. Because I would not want them to be in a place that looks really nice where the care is awful, right? And they don't pay attention to my dad or my mom. And they're in their room for 7 hours not being attended to. So again, these are some of the things we have to think about, and places that take Medicaid fall into all these categories, just so everybody's aware. Okay. There's a lot of places, and we have to also understand is that every place that takes Medicaid, you also have people there that are paying out of pocket. Okay, so you've got somebody on Medicaid on the 3rd floor, but somebody on the 2nd floor is paying $9,500 a month. Okay, for the same level of care. It's not like the people working there are like, oh, this person's on Medicaid, we're going to give them like the C-level treatment versus the person paying privately who gets the A-level treatment. So again, just things to consider. I want people to be mindful of these things. I think it's really important. I think that there's, I think it's getting better, but I think there's still a very negative stigma to any place that accepts Medicaid. And for a lot of people, it's just a reality, right? It's just, we're not going to have a choice. The money will run out, and this is something that we're going to need to consider. And so let's be educated on our options. Sorry, I know I tend to go off on some tangents. I apologize for that. So one thing to be really mindful of is this idea of Medicaid, right? The idea that my mom or dad's money could run out. And what happens if it does, right? So we need to be considerate of certain things, right? And again, I don't expect people to be brushing up on the Medicaid policy on a daily basis and to understand all the rules and all the tricks and all the ins and all the outs. And so we need to be mindful of some of the things that we're doing in relation to our parent to make sure that we're not putting them in a negative position when they go to apply for Medicaid. Okay. So let me briefly discuss how Medicaid works, and and then we'll talk about a lot of things I want people to consider. So in general, if I'm a single person applying for Medicaid in a nursing home, I can keep $2,000 of total assets in my name. Okay. That does not mean I can own a house. Okay. No house, no car. I can have $2,000 in my name, right? All my checking accounts, savings accounts, IRAs, cash value of life insurance policies, the total of all of that cannot exceed $2,000. I mean, I can, in addition to that, which I don't really see that often anymore, I can have $2,000 plus $1,500 of face value, basically cash value life insurance. Not too many people have policies that small anymore, but we do see them every once in a while. Well, let's just use the default $2,000 of total assets. And then I get to keep $30 a month of my income. So I go to apply for Medicaid in this nursing home. I have $2,000 from Social Security coming in. I get to keep $30 a month of that $2,000. I can continue to pay for my Medicare supplement. So if I have a supplement through, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I can pay for that. And then the rest of the money is going to go to the nursing home. And, the little side note here, it makes sense to keep the supplements, right? Especially in this case, all my income is going to go to the nursing home anyway. I might as well hold on to that supplement because I might be seeing doctors or certain specialists that may not take Medicaid as a secondary payer source to Medicare. And I want to be able to continue to see the same professionals that I've been working with over the years. Similarly, if something happens in the nursing home and I have to go to the hospital and I'm there for 3 overnights inpatient status, and then I get discharged back to the nursing home for rehab, Medicare covers the first 20 days of rehab 100%. And then up to another 80 days for a total of 100, but up to another 80 days, Medicare covers at 80%. And then my supplement will kick in and cover the other 20%. So the nursing homes want me to keep the Medicare supplement as well, because it's beneficial to them. Because what they get from that supplement will be a lot better than if I'm relying on Medicaid as my supplement to pay for that other 20%. But again, that's an important thing to realize for people that don't know that. If you have a loved one that goes into the hospital and then they get discharged to rehab, typically rehab in a skilled nursing facility, they get discharged to rehab. The rehab will be covered by Medicare. Again, just like I mentioned, for the first 20 days, 100%, up to a remaining 80 days at 80% with their supplement kicking in the other 20. Medicare is only going to kick in and pay for that rehab if they have 3 overnights inpatient status. Okay, they could be there for 7 nights and 4 of those nights can be under observation, but 3 of them need to be inpatient. That's how we get rehab covered by Medicare. Okay, really important to know this. I've had clients come to me and wonder why they got a bill from the rehab facility for $20,000 for 1 month of rehab. Okay, and that's because rehab is not like what you pay a long-term care facility that you're paying $300 a day and it's costing $9,000 a month. Rehab is typically over 2 times the daily rate of what it is to just be in a nursing home long-term. And that's because in rehab, you're meeting with a lot of other medical professionals while you're there, and you're doing, OT, PT, et cetera. And so it can be $500, $600, $700 a day. Okay, and those bills can be shocking, and we've seen it happen. So something to be very mindful of. Back to Medicaid, $2,000 in my name, $30 a month of income, and then there's a 5-year look back, and that just means Medicaid wants to see all my bank statements for the last 5 years. What did I give away? Right? Did I give any money away? That's what they're looking for. Medicaid uses the term, did I make any transfers for less than fair market value? But in general, did I gift money to my daughter or to my son or to my grandkids? Did I, as far as a transfer for less than fair market value is concerned, that's not a gift necessarily. Did I sell my car that was worth $10,000 to my son for $2,000? Right? That would be an $8,000 transfer for less than fair market value, right? I sold it for $2,000, it was worth $10,000. Medicaid would basically say I gave away $8,000, right? Did I sell my house for far less than what it was worth to my son or to my grandson? When we make gifts within the 5-year period before applying for Medicaid. Okay, this 5-year look back. What happens is Medicaid will penalize us. And the way that Medicaid penalizes us is they take the amount of the gift and they divide it by the monthly cost of care. So let me give you an example. Let's just say I'm ready to apply for Medicaid. It's May 1st. I'm down to $2,000. But over the last 5 years, I gave away $30,000 to my kids and grandkids, right? And maybe I didn't do it for purposes of applying for Medicaid, right? I did it because my son was going through a divorce and I wanted to help him with his attorney's fees. My grandson needed money for college and I wanted to help him out. Doesn't really matter, even though in the Medicaid policy, it says, transfers for less than fair market value in anticipation of applying for Medicaid. Honestly, they should just take that piece out because they're just going to, the state will always make the argument that people did it in anticipation of applying for Medicaid. So let's say I gave away $30,000 and let's just make it really easy and say the cost of care at this nursing home is $10,000 a month. Medicaid is going to say, Matt, you're approved. Okay, you're down to $2,000, you're eligible, but you need to figure out a way to pay for the next 3 months out of pocket, right? Because I gave away 30 grand, it's $10,000 a month. 30,000 divided by 10,000 is 3. So I need to private pay somehow, right? Even though I only have $2,000 in my name and $2,000 of income from Social Security, I need to figure out a way to pay for the next 3 months in this nursing home, and then Medicaid will kick in. Okay, that's a tough spot to be in unless my kids or my grandkids can somehow get me that money back and pay for me. Right? In those situations, typically I'm pleading with the nursing home, not necessarily the state, but I'm pleading with the nursing home saying, listen, you know that Medicaid's going to start paying for me in August. Is there any way that, if I just give you my $2,000 of income for May, June, and July, are you okay with that? Right? That's really what it comes down to. And that's a tough spot to be in, right? We don't want to be in that spot. So we really need to be mindful of what we're doing with our money, right? I'm not suggesting that people don't give birthday gifts and wedding gifts and those things I'm not really concerned about. It's, the bigger gifts that Medicaid will likely take issue with. But I also tell clients, I'm like, this is not the time, right? So when the adult daughter or son come to me, I'm also like, this is not the time to be making gifts, right? This might be a time where we stop making those gifts. Maybe we're not going to give the granddaughter $1,000 wedding gift. Maybe it's just more reasonable, right? I don't want an issue. We don't want an issue with Medicaid, right? I don't love telling people that they shouldn't give their child or grandchild a gift, but maybe we just need to be a little bit more reasonable with the gift that we're giving, so that we're not in some kind of position where we're having to fight with the state. If I'm married, so if I'm a married individual applying for Medicaid, all the numbers I just gave you are still relevant for me, okay? But my wife at home, she can have $109,560 in her name, okay? 109,560. I know it's a very random specific number. She can have $2,739 a month of income. And then the 5-year look back applies to her as well. And let me add, actually, she can have $109,560, a house and a car. Sorry about that. The house can be any value. So I don't care if it's a $300,000 house or an $800,000 house, no issues. The car can be a $20,000 car, an $80,000 car, there's no issues there. And the $109,560. As it relates to the income, the 2739 number I gave you, what we're looking at with the income is Medicaid says, okay, Matt, your wife can have $2,739 a month of income. If her income is less than that, then I can take my excess income that I would have had to give the nursing home if I was a single individual, and I can transfer it to my wife to get her up to that 2739 number. Okay. Which is great, right? Because that means I can give her more, she can have more income every month for her expenses, and I'm giving less to the nursing home, right? I think everybody would agree, win-win. If her income on her own is already above 2739, there are ways for me to still get some of my income to her, but it's really hard. We have to really prove that her monthly expenses, basically, that her regular monthly expenses exceed her income. I'm not saying that it doesn't come up, but it's been very rare, and I've been doing this for 10 years, very, very rare for most individuals we work with where they've got a loved one applying for Medicaid, just because in most cases, not every case, the house is paid off. There's not a mortgage. If there is a mortgage, it's a pretty manageable monthly amount. and you've got an older individual living at home, they typically don't have tons of expenses. Okay, and so that honestly, in doing this for 10 years, we've never had an opportunity to really fight with the state and argue that they need to have more income. Now, in situations where that spouse at home has income that exceeds the 2739, they will have to potentially give a very small percentage of that to the nursing home as well. Okay, so the nursing home can say, listen, there's an algorithm, they run it through. I can't go through that now, where they say, you're gonna have to contribute $40 a month plus your husband's income to the nursing home. Okay, this is how Medicaid works. Okay, now that we sort of have an understanding of how Medicaid works, let's talk about some other things that we need to consider when we've got this loved one at home, right? And we're taking care of them, our mom or dad, and what we need to be mindful of. So we've got some situations where, and we see this pretty often, where we've got this adult child who's living with mom and dad, right? This adult child is, they've put their life on hold. Now maybe they put their life on hold and they've been living with mom and dad for the last couple of years. Maybe it's, there's adult children out there that have always lived with their mom and dad, right? They've lived with them their whole lives, never got married, never had children, and they've always lived with their parents. We have to be mindful of things here, right? So when we have that adult child that's maybe been living with the mom and dad for a very long time, and maybe whether it's a long time or a short period, what concerns me in some of those situations is times when that adult child has been out of work. And it's not like they're out of work and they've got this huge nest egg that they built up prior to taking care of mom or dad, but they're living with mom and dad, taking care of mom or dad, and they really don't have many assets on their own. And so, mom or dad is writing them a check for $400 a month to help pay for their phone bill, and when they want to go out to eat by themselves and with their friends or whatever, and not sitting at home eating with their parent, right? So we've got situations where mom or dad is just giving money to this adult child, and then we've got situations where, obviously, in the same respect, this adult child is really providing a lot of care. There's certain situations where we have an adult child that's just living with their parent, right? And the parent doesn't necessarily need care. It's not really the situation that we're talking about. I'm talking about one where the parent really does need care. So two things to consider. One is, if we have that parent that, let's say, doesn't need care, I highly advise that we're not just that there's not money being gifted to this adult child on a monthly basis. Okay. Maybe if it's couched as a loan, maybe we're able to put it as a loan, knowing that, hey, when mom or dad passes away, I'll inherit the house, or if they move to a nursing home, I'll inherit the house. And if I sell the house, then I can pay the loan back. Maybe we want to set up as a loan. But again, just gifting the money to this adult child, not a good idea. Now, in situations where we want to get money to this adult child, and this adult child is also living with us and providing care, people should consider the idea of a caregiver contract. And I think, so we use caregiver contracts all the time with clients that hire private caregivers, right? They don't go through an agency, right? And listen, we are huge advocates of people going through caregiver agencies. People, you're looking at about $28 to $30 an hour now for caregivers, just so everybody kind of has an idea as to what those costs look like. So I get it when people don't go through agencies, right? Because they might find somebody privately that they're paying $15 or $20 an hour to. And when you're looking at, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, maybe, that difference of $10 an hour makes a huge difference, right? That could be a couple $1,000s a month less. And so I understand it, but if we're going to go that private caregiver route, and I'm not talking about somebody that's related, we need to have a written contract in place. Okay, because when mom or dad leaves the house and they go to apply for Medicaid, because now all of a sudden they can't be cared for at the home anymore, all the money they paid that private caregiver without a contract, I'm telling you right now, the state is going to argue that money was gifted, that was a transfer for less than fair market value. We've had it happen. We've had to fight the state. Okay, thankfully we've gotten past it a couple times, but there have been times when we haven't, and it was a penalty. And that's even though we had, the power of attorney for our client who was applying for Medicaid and the former caregivers all signed affidavits attesting to the fact that they provided this care, et cetera, the state still takes the argument that we gifted, the individual gifted the money. So we need to have that written agreement, right? That written contract. Okay, so having a caregiver contract with those private caregivers is going to save us. Well, we can have a caregiver contract with an adult child. There's nothing wrong with that. I have clients that have said it feels weird to sign a contract with my son or my daughter and to pay them for taking care of me. But there's a couple things to consider here, right? Number one, in certain situations, it's like if you're giving money to your kids anyway, and they're caring for you, why don't we memorialize it? And yeah, sure, you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise been paying them to take care of you. But again, if you're giving them the money anyway, there's no harm in this, right? They are taking care of you. You want to give them money, let's put it together. That's fine, there's nothing wrong. And then certain situations where maybe they weren't giving them money prior, right? Let's say the son or daughter is fine, right? Maybe not, isn't extremely well off, but they don't necessarily need mom or dad's money. In certain situations like this, we might still be recommending a caregiver contract. Why? Because most people, I'm not saying everybody, but most people have this idea that they would like to pass on money to their children or their grandchildren when they pass away. There's not too many people that I meet with, and there have been some, but there's not too many people that I've met with over the last 10 years of doing this that say, I want to literally spend all my money and die with 1 penny, right? Most people say, yeah, I get it. I want to make sure that I'm taken care of, but I would really like to make sure that I'd like to pass something on to my kids or my grandkids, even when they have children that are highly successful and their kids don't need the money, right? I think a lot of us that are parents want to leave some sort of a legacy. We want to feel like we're able to help our kids after we're gone. It's meaningful to us, and it doesn't matter how much or how little it is. I'm 37 and I would love to make sure that there's something for my kids. And hopefully I've got many years before I really have to, consider the idea of that. But I can tell you that, there's, again, majority of the people I meet with have that same feeling. And so we might recommend in these situations, listen, I know you haven't been paying your son or daughter to be your caregiver, but why don't we consider it? Because in a lot of cases, people are coming to us saying, listen, mom or dad might be going into a nursing home in a year or 2 years. We're just kind of trying to get our ducks in a row. And we might be saying, okay, well, mom or dad's taking care of you. An easy way for mom or dad to protect some money is maybe we create a caregiver agreement and they pay you. You're providing care. It's not like we're making it up. This is not a situation, and trust me, we're not lying here. I am not telling my clients, oh, we're just going to pretend like you're taking care of them and we'll put an agreement together. These are situations where they are living with their parent and they are taking care of them 24/7. Let's put an agreement together. They can pay you. Maybe you never need that money. Maybe you never want that money for yourself. But you know what? Maybe in 2 years when dad applies for Medicaid, he's got $2,000 in his name, and maybe he needs new clothes. Maybe you want to buy him an iPad. Maybe there are certain things that he would like you to, whatever, who knows, right? We don't know what expenses might come up that dad might enjoy. Guess what? Now you've got this, a bank account with $30,000 in it for the money that dad paid you to take care of him. And you can use that money to take care of him now, right? Maybe even though he's in a nursing home, you might pay a caregiver to spend some time with him a couple days a week, right? Maybe he has certain needs where a caregiver coming in is helpful in certain situations. And maybe people that are on this call have seen this happen before, but I've had clients that go into nursing homes and the nursing home requires that they have a caregiver for certain times of the day because they are that high need. And I know that sounds crazy. And I think one of the first times I heard it, I thought it did as well. But the reality is a nursing home does not mean 24-hour care. It does not mean that we have somebody tending to us 24 hours. Yes, there are staff available 24 hours for sure, but it's definitely not one-to-one, right? So if I have needs that are really, really serious, there are some nursing homes that will say, yeah, you can move in here, but you need a caregiver 6 hours a day, right? In a lot of cases, if somebody's on Medicaid, they don't have the money to pay for that, right? So their adult children are paying for it if they can. Okay, so one thing to really consider is this idea of caregiver contracts with adult children. I'm not saying it's necessary, but we've used these quite a bit over the years. They come in handy. And again, it's also a way where it is not They are not gifting money. There will be no argument from the state that they were gifting money to this adult child. Caregiver contracts can also be, so I know that we're talking about children. It can be relevant to grandchildren, right? I mean, this could really be relevant to any family members, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, obviously. Really, the goal here is anytime somebody's providing care and it's not through an agency where you are signing a contract as part of that agency relationship, there should be a caregiver contract. Okay, for sure with those private caregivers that we're hiring off the street, but definitely with the family members as well. There's no reason why we shouldn't do that. Another thing to consider here is there is a child caregiver exemption with Medicaid. And so if I have an adult child that's been taking care of me and living with me, now this is only for adult children. This is not grandchildren. I think it's crazy that the state has not expanded this. I don't know why. I think it's wrong. So it does not apply to grandchildren. But if I have an adult child that's been living with me and taking care of me for at least 2 years, up until the time I move into a facility, and then I apply for Medicaid, I can transfer my house to that adult child, and it is not considered a transfer for less than fair market value. It's not considered a gift. Okay. But that adult child had to have been taking care of me. It cannot just be a situation where that adult child was living with me and I was doing fine. And one day I had a stroke. I went to the hospital. I went to rehab in a nursing home, and then I ended up staying in the nursing home long term. Okay, that does not work. That adult child had to have been living with me for at least 2 years, and they had to have been providing care. And I believe the Medicaid policy actually states that it has to be a level of care that's at least equivalent to like assisted living. So that I at least needed help with at least 2 activities of daily living, I believe is what it says. I've never had the state be a huge stickler to that exactly. Typically the information that we're having to provide the state, right? Because it'd be one thing if we could just literally, write it down on a piece of paper and say, yes, my son has been taking care of me for the last 2 years. I transferred my house to him. I meet the qualifications. Doesn't work that way. We typically will need a doctor's letter, right? So we're going to want to get a letter from the doctor saying, number one, that this individual, that we're talking about me, that I required the assistance care of a third person for at least the last 2 years, right? I've needed a caregiver, and I've had a caregiver in my home for the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And then it's also beneficial if that doctor is willing to write something like, to my knowledge, not only has this person required care, but to my knowledge, Matt's son has been living with him and providing that care for the last, 3 years and 8 months since I saw Matt, in 2017, whatever. And most doctors I've found are, and when I say most doctors I've found are willing to do this, we've had the situation come up twice in 10 years, maybe 3 times. This is not something that comes up that often, right? It does come up. I think it's really important to know. And so we need to make sure that we get a letter from the doctor. And then also we're gonna have to submit evidence that was my son's address, right? So they're gonna want, the state's gonna wanna see, tax returns from my son that shows that he's using that as his home address. A couple pieces of mail or bills, maybe his telephone bill that shows that as his address. I mean, even better, like, a copy of his driver's license or ID card that has that as a home address. So, we need to provide some proof to the state. They're not just going to take our word, obviously. Okay, dealing with Medicaid is not a walk in the park. They do require a lot. They don't make it easy, especially in these situations where we are obviously looking to protect some assets in some sense, right? I mean, we're doing it within their rules. We're transferring the house according to the fact that they say we can, but we need to provide the right amount of proof to do that. The biggest thing I really think people need to consider is this idea of gifting money and being very conscious of, as their parents are getting older and not doing so well, this is not a time to be giving stuff away. Okay, there are strategic ways to gift. Okay, and we are happy to talk. I'm happy to talk to people offline about that. I'm not saying that there are not ways to do it, but meet with an attorney, work with an elder law attorney. If you're looking to protect assets for your mom or dad who's not doing well, meet with an elder law attorney, have that discussion. There might be options, but just, we see people that, transfer mom or dad's house to the kids because they think they're going to protect it, or they transfer all the money out of mom or dad's account to themselves. Again, not doing it being a bad child, but thinking that they're going to, be able to skirt the system. Again, there are ways to do it, but we need to do it the right way. One of the last points I want to bring up, and then I'll open it up to any questions, is sort of when it's the right time to move mom or dad out of the house. Now, listen, I am not speaking from a medical standpoint, and I'm not trying to, but from a Medicaid standpoint, from just an experience in dealing with this over the last 10 years standpoint, we don't want to wait to the last minute financially to move mom or dad out of our house, out of their house into a long-term care facility of some sort. And I don't mean like, clearly in some cases, obviously all of a sudden maybe dad or mom's got to a point where they just can't be cared for at home anymore. Well, then they need to move. But I'm really talking about, paying attention to the financial piece. Okay, so let's say mom or dad, listen, maybe my son or daughter could continue to care for me at home, but my assets are really starting to get low, right? Maybe I'm down to $20,000 or $15,000. And the concern is, yeah, you know what? I can still take care of dad here, but he's going to be out of money soon. And I don't have the money to support him here and to pay all the bills and to take care of him. And so, the question, these are the calls we get, right? I think I need to move dad into a nursing home and apply for Medicaid. What we don't want is we don't want to be waiting to the last minute financially to move our loved one into a nursing home. It hurts when I get those calls where it's like, I'm like, okay, well, how much money does dad have? Oh, he's got $10,000. He's got $4,000. He's got $20,000. Most nursing homes, okay, even though we talked about the idea that I can have $2,000 in my name and apply for Medicaid, I can tell you that the majority of nursing homes that take Medicaid that are going to be more desirable, again, take that with a grain of salt, they're going to want some private money. They're going to want me to be able to pay for maybe 1 month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. They're going to want me to be able to pay for a certain number of months out of pocket. And then if I run out and I'm down to $2,000, they'll let me apply for Medicaid. They'll be fine with that. But a lot of these places want me to be able to private pay for a number of months first. And we really need to be conscious of this. So I'm not saying that there's no magic number, right? I don't know, I'm not going to say that, you should start looking at places when mom or dad is down to 60,000 or 70,000 or 40,000 or 50,000. But I think that, maybe when the funds get under $100,000, you just start to look, right? We start to see what options are out there. What are places requiring? Let's start to do some research. Give yourself a couple months, right? You're probably pretty safe with $30,000 or $40,000, maybe, right? But you'll only know that when you start to look, right? This place today might want 4 months of private pay, but if you went there a month from now, they might say, we only need 1 month. Or maybe in a month from now, they say we need 6 months. And a lot of times that's because their Medicaid beds might be full. And so they're like, in 5 to 6 months, we might have a Medicaid bed open, but that means that you're going to need private pay until then. So again, this is something where we just really want to be conscious of how the money, where the money's at, how mom or dad is doing. Again, this goes back to the idea of putting powers of attorney in place. The earlier we plan, the more proactive we are, the greater our options are. Okay. And you know what? In a lot of these situations, again, I don't care if it's me or another elder law attorney. A lot of these situations where we are caring for a parent, I really can't stress the importance of sitting down with an elder law attorney and getting some advice and just going through it. We've seen it. We've seen many different scenarios, many different versions of what, most adult children are dealing with. And, the guidance that we can offer and the resources that we can provide that, there might just be resources out there that are not us, right? We might say, you should really talk to this person, or maybe this person would be beneficial to speak with. Maybe we're not the right fit. We're talking about a very serious matter, obviously, with a parent declining And most adult children, they're dealing with this for the first time, right? And they're in over their head, and they might feel like they've got a good grasp on things, but at some point it starts to slip. And it comes down to maybe sitting down with somebody and just getting some advice. And again, it doesn't need to be me, but somebody, right? And don't have Google be your elder law attorney or Wikipedia. It's not the right fix. So I think we've got about 8 minutes here. That's about all I have. I can't see the chat box though. Let me see if I can get it on my phone. I don't know if there's any questions.
I don't see any questions either.
Oh, okay. All right.
So does anybody have any questions in person? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask if there's anything that Matt covered that maybe you didn't understand or that he didn't cover, and you've got a quick question regarding more general preferred, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, anything, if it's specific about your parents or a loved one, you can always reach out to me offline.
Excellent. And actually, speaking of that, while you answer the questions, I will share my screen so that people can see how to contact you. There we go. So Matt's information is here up on the screen now. Maybe no one has questions, Matt. Maybe it was just so thorough.
I guess. Or boring, one of the two.
People stay on the call, so that means it's probably not.
That's good.
It wasn't too boring.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good.
Good. All right. I'll give people a chance to write things down. Wonderful. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. And if no one has questions, then I guess we'll say thank you everyone for joining us today. Matt, thank you as always for the great information and very thorough, detailed explanations to help people. And if you do have questions, you can reach out to Matt. And if you don't have his information, you can always reach out to me at the Y, and I can put you in touch with Matt. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Enjoy the weather. Get out there.
Yes.
Go for a walk.